Clubhouse.
Jill, ask them what they think about supervillain.
That sounds better to me. More exciting.
Do you prefer saving America? How about saving the world?
Nope. It's saving America.
Welcome back to Podcast V. This is coverage for the finale of the third season. This one was called Instant White Hot Wild. This is Paul with Pod Clubhouse, and I am joined, as usual, by Kat from the Latinx Lens podcast. Hello, Kat.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm also here with someone who's not doing so great. Inez, how are you today?
I'm kicking COVID's butt is what I'm doing.
That's right. Showing it. Who's the boss of COVID? You will not keep your cake hole closed. First impressions. What did you think of this finale?
I was interested to see how they were going to go, and I was happy to know that some of the predictions I made were sort of on the nose a little bit. And while there isn't as much action-packed as like last season's finale, I do think in terms of like strategy, we kind of leave a lot of the things that have that have happened in the past few seasons, like hopefully in the past, and now we can move forward to new exciting things. So I think it did set up some interesting ideas for like the next season, but it also kind of closed some for this season. So I like that. So I felt like it was overall satisfying, even though there wasn't a lot of action as I thought there would be. And I felt that coming because of the epic fight we had a few episodes ago. I feel like they pulled a Game of Thrones, putting more of that in the earlier season, and then this is sort of more of a strategic finale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But overall, I liked it. I was wondering where we were going to go in the next season. Still a little open-ended, but I think everything kind of tied in, like circled in a way I really liked.
I had teased in our chat on Twitter that you had made a very quick offhanded prediction that did come true. It was that Soldier Boy would find Homelander lacking. Mm. And that would be the reason why they would not team up. You just kind of mention it, just like, well, what if he doesn't think he's all that great? And so yeah, here's for you, Kat.
Oh, thank you! Yay!
Overall, I did enjoy the finale. There were some things that I don't fully understand and wasn't totally satisfied with how it played out. But overall, from a finale, it was still a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the action that we did get to see in here. I mean, we'll dive into it when we get into some of the characters, because I think I still have a lot of pending questions, just kind of really interested on both of your perspectives in case I've missed something to where that's kind of left me in this kind of limbo kind of feel about it. But overall, I really did enjoy it. This is a great season.
I thought that the finale, you guys, had some great moments. However, I thought the very end of it felt like, as we kind of predicted last time, there was just too much that they could possibly wrap up in this one episode. If this had to have been the finale for the whole series, this feels more like they just put a pause button on. Mm-hmm. They wrapped up the wound, and so that we could carry on to another day. This would have been a horrible place to stop.
Absolutely. Completely agree with that. And so I'm feeling a little bit better that maybe I didn't miss something.
Let's dive in. Let's maybe work our way from the bottom up in terms of story impact and time on screen. So that means we'll probably end with Homelander. So that means we'll start with stupid A-Train and his struggle with his brother. So this moment where he's basically shunned by his brother because his brother had wanted to see Blue Hawk and leg irons or whatever, because he wanted him to have actual judicial system justice rather than, face hamburger justice. What do you think of any of that? Was that fair?
Honestly, I mean, while there is a lot of positives in this episode, the A-Train storyline is one that all season has not been very satisfying. I feel like they haven't known where to put them. I think it was sort of I don't really care. Yeah. This whole thing about justice and stuff, I'm it does show sort of the ugly side of A-Train has always been ambitious and never looking back. And then when he was down and out, he was trying to also go back to his family, but then also still use them. And then it didn't work out. And then he's feeling guilty. But even like his brother said, you're thinking about yourself. You know, like when he proposed a plan, it was still about him. It wasn't a genuine thing. And I think that even A-Train doesn't know how to be genuine, maybe. You know, I think we kind of know people like that where we're like, they always like kind of make it seem like they're doing it for you, but they're not doing it for you. And sometimes it's more sad for them than it is like for you, you know, because you know who you are. The brother was like, just leave me alone. Like, I'm fine. And he kind of felt sorry for him at that moment. Mm-hmm. So, my question is, where does this leave A-Train? He hasn't done anything. He had this sideline story. And now that his family has left him, the last bit of, I guess, whatever he has left, Homelander doesn't even want him. Where are they left? Like him and Deep are I guess we can start with those, right? Like, yeah. What are they doing? What are they there for? Like, and they don't have to have this major arc or be whatever, but it is just a question of like, okay, what are you doing with these characters? Where are they going to go?
Yeah, they keep coming back on screen, right? Mm-hmm. So
yeah, they take a significant amount of time too. So it's not just like a really side story. Like they have their own thing. So I'm just wondering, like, when is it going to end, or what are they going to do? Kind of sort of thing.
Yeah, he has not been a significant character pretty much the entire season, which I think we kind of said he's more like an accessory for us to see things about Homelander. I think that he knew that Blue Hawk was never going to get like any kind of legitimate justice. So like to him, that decision and really fucking awesome scene of how he murdered Blue Hawk, like I loved watching that, right? We talked like that was like one of our first times like getting to see like stuff that he can do. And now he has a new heart. I feel like consistently throughout all 3 seasons, he's had like this really high respect and love for his brother, and he wants his brother's like reassurances. So all I can assume is maybe like since he didn't die this season, like we were kind of like we could see him die and be okay. If he's not going to die, then it's kind of one of those strategic placements maybe for the future season here. This might be finally that kind of character arc that could get him out of this consistently being like a piece of shit person to maybe like he's got the second opportunity and he really wants to right the wrongs with his brother, and that's enough motivation. So maybe, I mean, know that we're not in like prediction stuff, but like that's the only thing I can kind of figure out of why we've kept this character alive, despite like I thought his like whole scene with Blue Hawk and then him having this heart attack and dying was like pretty fucking epic ending. Like I thought that was a really great way to end his story. So
it would have been perfect actually just to leave him there. But what they did show us with this episode, particularly with Maeve, is that heroism maybe isn't this perfect, shining, always 100% example of how to act. Maybe it comes in moments where Maeve was a very jaded person who became driven by just her singular focus to hate and kill Homelander, eventually wound up saving the group, which wasn't her actual aim, but she kind of knew she was the right person for the job when the situation arose, and she did it. So mentioning that earlier than Maeve's portion of our story here, but I'm bringing that up as an example of the writers can take these piece of shit characters and give us those moments of promise. A-Train had it with Blue Hawk. I mean, his brother didn't like that, but I was kind of okay with it. I don't know that I would have done a different thing were I A-Train in that moment. And the guy that crippled my brother was right in front of me. Yeah, we're both superheroes, you know, bring it. Do what you can do. If you think you can do better, then let's go.
Like, I guess because his brother doesn't understand like how influential Vought is in the justice system. So I really feel like there was absolutely no way that Blue Hawk was going to go down or face any kind of judicial consequence for it. So if he was going to get any kind of punishment, like this is the perfect way that it happened. And like I said, I was fine with it.
Let's move on to someone with some more impact on the story. Except for like Homelander, everybody has just little drips and drabs of story. One hope that we had in the last podcast was that Butcher was saying something but going to do another with regard to allowing Huey to shoot up the Temp V again. And I think we called that one correct. As Huey says it, he did it in the worst way possible.
I know because I think you called it, Paul. I was like very much like, I have no faith in Butcher at this point. Like, this makes no sense. Like, there are so much better ways to like handle this kind of thing. And so I think what saved me from like accepting that, okay, Butcher did execute the way that like Paul predicted that he probably could. The saving grace for me was that Huey said that line. It was the shittiest possible way, but he did that. And I was like, okay, I accept this now.
Shittiest possible way, and getting punched out and left in a truck stop bathroom. However, Huey did all of his epiphanies kind of landing all at once in one episode. I guess that's the way TV is supposed to be written, to an extent. But did it all feel organic and true to the character and all that kind of stuff in terms of just, you know, the progression of the show? 8 episodes of kind of building up. You know, he started with his high-flying government position, feeling self-esteem for the first time in his life, and then sinking again, realizing that he's working for the bad guys, and then needing to do whatever it takes to level the playing field. And then finally in this episode, he's able to apologize. He's able to make this kind of connection about what the strength of family actually looks like, rather than some ideal that he might have had stored away in his little heart. But then the big moment really is grabbing the Temp V, but then not using it. Like he still has the urge to save Annie, but he does it with his brains by powering up all the lights in the studio rather than using the Temp V. All that happening in one episode. Does that work for you? Is that just the nature of episodic TV? It's supposed to build to a moment like that.
It is only 8 episodes long, so I can see that they would have to condense it. And I think that they kind of have been keeping the big themes related to Temp V within like single episodes, right, to kind of show us beginning, middle, and resolution kind of thing with it. So I guess it makes sense that he would have like this arc here. I was kind of like uneasy about like the transition from like how he realized like, oh, Butcher like saved me because he loves me so much. Like that whole part like felt kind of like forced on me and didn't feel like authentic. But like I said, I'm just kind of excusing all of it because of the shittiest possible way quote that Huey said. And I'm like, all right. I have a hard time dealing with things that don't like connect like super well. And like I can kind of fester in that. So I'm going to use that as my safe key to like move on. But I mean, I don't think that is unlike. I think that it's consistent for his character to do that. Like he has been a supporting role for the entirety. He's a main character in the show, but he's been kind of a supporting role to these other people who are more skilled, and he's kind of like really great at that, and they respect like his contributions for that. And I feel like this was like a really good growth for him to finally let go of, I don't have to be the hero and I can still contribute in a significant way by being a supporting role to his girlfriend and powering up her room, which I have my own thoughts about that later when we get to Starlight.
So I've been sort of talking about how I've been annoyed with Huey this whole season.
Yes.
But then when you were talking about whether this is episodic television or whether it's true to his character, it kind of sparked that idea that like, in some ways, I do think it is because it's television. They have to wrap him up. And this is where they, like, it feels like this was the goal for Huey this season. But in other ways, too, like, I mean, I think it is true to human nature where, like, it takes a few times for you to fuck up and then realize, and then you have the epiphany in the worst possible time. People will either accept that or they won't. In this case, I think everyone was like even Starlight, she has really been the solid person this season of like, she knows that all these people around her are like kind of failing and like breaking down, but she's like, look, I love them to the core, so I'm just going to give them the space to do that. And I think she wanted Huey to like have this epiphany on his own, and then he ended up finally having it. And so I was happy with that. It did feel a little abrupt in all this one episode, but it has been building towards it. And again, like I said, I think I've even had those moments where I'm like, you make the same mistake over and over again. You like resent people or whatever. And then you realize like, oh, it's my shit. And then you have that moment. Luckily he had it in the best episode finale, time. But, hopefully this is it for the Huey, like in past insecurity Huey, and that we can move forward and he can be like a support for Starlight and where he succeeds. And so I think maybe he has finally found his place in the boys, and he won't resent anybody. He won't try to be anything he's not. He will just embrace who he is and the support that he is. Because I think also he realized that he is that person for Billy, which I think he always wanted to be. And then by Billy saving him, that made him feel good as well. Like that's being part of the team, so I would like to see now that they're all together. They all came to it though in a really fucked up way, but then I feel like they're more together than they are not in this episode, which is cool leading into season 4 where they're really going to be back to being the boys.
Yeah.
I think Huey is the heart of it because obviously he doesn't have powers. It was really broken down when he was just having this whole like stupid individual thing, and then I'm just glad it's over.
I have a question for both of you about Huey's medical situation here. So in the beginning of the episode, we do see him that he's like still bleeding through his ears, right? And he hasn't taken a temp V after that incident, but he is still bleeding from the ears. And we know that the damage that is related to temp V is in the brain and tumors and stuff and happening in the brain. Do you think that, at the end, we saw only Butcher in the hospital. Do you think that this is like the end of that story for him and the stuff that's happening in his brain? And that they were just using this episode of like, he's bleeding his brain, so if he takes it one more time, he could die. But because he chose not to in this episode, then he's just like fine now. And then that's the end of like his story with Temp V. Or do you think that this is a potential for like linking into season 4, just because things in the brain, it's like the one organ that doesn't like regenerate?
I'd see it like they'll probably leave it alone, except if for some reason they run out of road and they need to ramp up some kind of drama for Huey in the narrative that isn't coming some other way, which would be sort of more like something you'd find in a 24 episode season than an 8 episode season. I know you've watched Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Inez, so you know that there are plots that come up that last like 6 episodes, and it seems like a big deal. But really, when you look at the overall plot for the season, it wasn't about that at all. And it was just sort of like a way to keep that character going for those 6 episodes. But largely it didn't matter, whatever that was. But you don't really have those kinds of plots, or at least they only take up a half an episode in such a short span of, I don't think they'll go back to it unless they need it. However, as a watcher and someone who does apply my brains a little bit to it, I recognize that you don't get to take something that you're one shot away from killing you, but you're just fine afterwards. Like, where's that threshold? Is it?
Yeah, I know. I was just curious because that's going to bother me. Like the neurodivergent in me is, and especially because I come from like a very like science, like medical science background from like my foundation of education. And so that's going to bother me so much. And I'm like, I saw his ears still bleeding, brain matter or some kind of gunk, but he doesn't take the V. Like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And like, we don't really like see him go through any medical stuff at the end of the episode,
right,
like, for them to like check on him. And I'm like, but he's like has like brain growths and brains melting. Like, why is he not in the hospital right now? And that's gonna hurt me, guys. That's gonna hurt me.
Like I said, Billy smoked for 40 years. but Huey only smoked for 30 years, right? Somehow Billy is fatal, but Huey, he's okay. And that doesn't quite wash mentally.
One dosage difference, and he's like a smaller body, and it's the brain. Like, this is not an area that just like magically like heals itself. It's so much more complex than other organs in your body. So it's going to bother me if we don't see it, but I just needed to point it out because maybe there are other neurodivergents out there also tracking like things that make sense and don't make sense. And
what if they pull a switch on us in season 4? Because I do think it's a small detail that maybe they won't highlight as much, but maybe it could come up where they're giving us the most obvious one, which is Billy, because he took it more times than Huey did. So he has I guess, sort of an end time right now that he's going to die 12 to 18 months, which is plenty of TV time if they like, a month could be a season, right. Or 1 month of time and could be this whole season. But what if it's sort of the thing like we think Huey is okay just because he took it like the 3 times and not the 5 times, but then it ends up being a thing in the next season where like it's actually affecting him. So I don't rule it out because I think they wouldn't show us that and they wouldn't have made it such a big deal if it doesn't come back later. I still think one of them is going to have to take permanent V to not die. And I feel it's going to be Huey. And now that he's like made his epiphany of like, I don't need superpowers, then he's probably going to end up getting superpowers later. Especially if you guys one of you said that the comic books, they all like they do have superpowers, like the boys do. So I feel like that would be kind of, if that's true, I don't know the comic books, but like that means they probably need to go towards that overall for how like in terms of like the TV goals. Yeah, that was Inez, I believe, because it wasn't me, and if it wasn't you, then that narrows things down quite a bit. And I don't know how strictly close they need to skew toward the comics. That's not necessarily a hard and fast rule, but still kind of making fans of the comics earn that moment when maybe their favorite character gets to that point that they recognize them, gaining powers or whatever. I can imagine if I was a comic reader that moment would feel like a gigantic payoff. Okay, cool. Thanks for like entertaining that thought train, guys. Sure. Huey is along with Starlight. Does Starlight let him off the hook a little too easy? I mean, I've been in a lot of boy-girl arguments in my life. Just letting the girl say, I told you so, is like not ever an option. That being like, okay, I'll let you say that. It's like, what? Yeah. Well, I think she's going to say whatever she's going to say. and me giving permission to say it is not going to be like, oh, the pressure's off now. I loved seeing the way they made her react to Huey's thing, because on the one hand, I'm like, oh, like I would have just dumped him already and been gone with him. But on the other, I do feel like that's a relationship. Like you see the person going through some stuff, even though you don't like it and they annoy you and you're probably on the brink of like, okay, well, and she even said like, I'm taking care of what I need to take care of. So she wasn't necessarily waiting for Huey, but I think she was hoping that this is what he would do. But I think she's had like she's obviously had a bigger fish to fry than like worry about her romantic problems with Huey. Like, and just keeping him alive too. So like, it's like, oh, like even if she was indifferent to what he's doing, she didn't want him to die, so she was still concerned about him. So I feel like she's just had like the Homelander, Soldier Boy, the fate of the world on her plate, more so than like, oh, I need to tell Huey that he's being an ass and all that. I think that was like the least of her concerns. That's fair. I agree, Kat. This is probably just them, the writers and stuff, taking an opportunity to deviate from kind of the standard kind of way that you see relationships represented when they're going through tough times. And this, I think they were intentionally giving us hints that this could like lead to a breakup. But, they were dealing with like really severe stuff, life and death stuff. So arguments, the relationship part, like if they like really do love each other, and for the most part, they have consistently had like really good, healthy communication, like from season 1 through 3. I was happy to see them kind of like resolve it this way, because there are some kind of like disagreements or things that I have to go through like with my husband, and we do resolve it with like, look, I just need you to acknowledge that I was right. And then I will happily move on and never rub this in your face. And that's like our deal. Whoever it is who's in the wrong, which is usually not me. But like he'll, he or I will say,
whoever will kind of say that. I was like, okay, I just need to hear you like say what the issue was, just so that the communication is like really clear for me to understand that like you really do acknowledge and you believe in your reasons as to why we've landed at this conclusion, right? And so that's like is like what I need to do. I don't necessarily personally need to do the I told you so kind of thing, but if he's already apologized, if he hasn't apologized, I'm like, look, like we both know that I'm right. So like I just need you to like say it so that I understand, so that we can walk away from this conversation accountable, like for what we agreed upon, and then we just like leave it there and it's all good. It's never obviously over like saving like people's lives and dealing with like corrupt multi-billion to trillion-dollar companies and government corruption. Like we don't have that kind of pressure. So I just thought I really liked that kind of like respect that they still have.
I guess that's true. The scale of what you have going on around you that you're involved with, maybe that does. In fact, I can probably attest, I've never needed to save the world or take on a superhero, but I have had much bigger fish to fry than worry about much smaller arguments in comparison. The immediacy and like the needing to be right or whatever the situation may call for does scale in real life compared to if you are needing to save the world right then. Like whatever, fine, we'll figure that out later. We need to go save the world right now.
They have short time frames that they have to get this shit done, and it's all super critical, and there's no pathway to really take, and you're just hoping that each of your guys' strategies are working. And yeah, like it's going to be like we're going to have conflicting differences. Usually when people are working through like a big major strategy or project, they have time, and these people in these stories don't have that kind of time. So it's always going to kind of be this constant reactive bartering or bantering back and forth until like a resolution happens. And yeah, so I like how they concluded that issue between this couple and kept them kind of like consistent and authentic, as like this is if they say they love each other and they are a consistently respectful couple who genuinely have love for each other, like this is probably what it would more look like.
With the moment in the finale when, and this is going to border on prediction type stuff, but Huey powers up the studio lights. And in that moment, Starlight is able to draw in enough power to daze Soldier Boy so that everybody can team up on him. Earlier in the season, we had seen where Maeve had been, even though she's already a superhero, she knew she needed to kind of keep working on her skills and on her abilities in order to keep progressing. When we first met Starlight, when she was trying out for the Seven, do you remember her mom had her training by like hitting the bricks on the side of the house? That seems like a terrible idea, but that's what they were showing us, was that she was strong enough to punch a brick and have it just shatter. Maybe they're showing us that even if you are superpowered, you can still improve if you work at it. And here they showed us that she powered up to a level that she didn't, I don't think she knew she could do. And she was able to at least daze someone that's much stronger than her, supposedly. We also have that moment at the end where Maeve is sharing her inspirational words and she says, "You can fly." I wonder if we're getting to a point where we're seeing how much Starlight can power up so that she is in a much better position to be there. So as far as we know, only really super powered. I mean, Kimiko's powered, but whenever she takes on someone that's like bigger and better, she always seems to lose. She can beat normal humans, but when it comes to other, like the Seven or Soldier Boy, whatever, she gets taken out pretty quick. So I'm only looking at Starlight as our major superpowered opponent, but she's not strong enough yet. So do you think they're kind of telegraphing? It's possible anyway that they're telegraphing that with enough effort on her part of it, she can get stronger and maybe even fly.
Yeah, wrote it out for us. Like hint, hint. Especially now that if Billy can't take any more Temp V there, and Kimiko, like you said, she can only take out kind of like, I think of her as like the Power Rangers, you know, take on out those like gray guys in the original show. the ones that are like the easier ones. I guess that she never really considered herself able to take out Homelander herself. But now that she did that to Soldier Boy, who is, I mean, obviously at par with Homelander, then she might have it in her to be like, maybe go and I hope there's like a montage of her testing out her powers. And it's so cheesy too, but I love the way they did it where it was a culmination of like Huey also supporting her and then her coming to the epiphany herself of like, it wasn't even about Huey, but like the fact that now she does have his support and Maeve's support too, which I think matters probably a little bit more in the superhero realm of like, you can do this. And I think now she believed in herself to help, but I don't think she ever believed herself in like the superpower sense. So now that everything has come together, the support around her and herself, maybe she will be able to discover more of her power, which I find fun because we've said it a lot on the show where they don't really tell us explicitly what all the powers are and what they can do. So, and I think that's on purpose, obviously, but this is fun to know like she does have something else to give us, and she doesn't even know it either.
I feel really bad for what I'm about to say, but I am not a fan of Starlight as a superhero. And I actually laughed at that scene where she gets like, they made this like really big dramatic power up, right? And it looked super cool. And in theory, it like was really, I guess, like it was really helpful. But then when I saw like she does this blast and it really, I don't even feel like it dazes Soldier Boy, just more like knocks him off balance, and then people are able to take advantage of that. Like I even wrote down like, was this like a joke? Did the writers intentionally make this like a really huge dramatic buildup for like a tiny little boop? Or it's like something like, to me, it felt relatively like a tiny thing, especially because of all of the powers that we've seen like a lot of these people already do, especially like Soldier Boy, especially Homelander, and even Maeve. Oh my God, I love her.
Well, still though, that little boop does show promise that I don't think she knew she had, and she didn't have unless she went through that cool power up scene.
Right. Yeah. But that's the other problem for me. Like, I have not been like super impressed with this power that she has since season 1, because season 1 showed me that she is basically useless if there's no electricity power around her to take. Because remember, in season 1, she like had to get power, like try to get like power from the car because she didn't have any power. So she'd come across this person with a car and then they take his car. And then that's the only way that she was able to actually use that power. So Huey has to feed this power. So, I mean, maybe it's like for potential for them to be able to see how can we always keep a battery pack for Starlight on all of her like ventures so that she can do like super power stuff. But to me, it's like, what kind of power is this? Is that there's absolutely no electricity kind of things around you, like that there's, you have nothing.
She doesn't get to use those electrical powers. She was in the safe. She did get to use some of her strength, and it took like an hour of her banging on the door for her to get it open. But you're right. Her headline powers, her, ability to create the flashes, they call her Starlight or whatever, that does take the power, the electricity around her. And I also felt like it was underwhelming given that all it did was knock him down. But it did, after watching it a second time, I did realize that was enough to give everybody else a chance to gang up on Soldier Boy.
Team effort is like the point of it, but it was just funny to me that they spent seconds, 30 seconds. I don't even know how long it was, but like, right, we know like in TV, it's limited real estate time, limited constraint of time, right? And I felt like they spent a huge amount of time just to show us like her power up and her like flying in the air kind of like moment or whatever. And it was a long time. So I was expecting like something as epic as like Soldier Boy, when he explodes or something. I laughed and it was just like, dink. So I was like, this isn't, I was like, did they do this on purpose? Like, is this one of those satirical kind of things like that the writers are doing? Or was this like intentional and it was just, like you said, like underwhelming? I don't know. That's kind of like, that was my impression of it. I didn't get a chance to watch it a second time yet. So I'll go check it out. I mean, I was watching it with like COVID brain. So I'm probably like extra like grumpy old man perspective, you know?
Nah, that's not much of a power.
But I do think you're right, though. I think it is a bit satirical because I think in essence, the show is making fun of these powers in a way. So it's meant to be like with Starlight, though, like we should be taking it seriously, or like it's cool that she's getting her powers. But I think overall, though, I mean, she is just like, what does she do? You know, like I it's not lost on me. Like I didn't think her power was really cool. I didn't even know what it did. She was kind of useless, like you said, without any electricity. But I think that is also the point as well.
I was also kind of like annoyed earlier in the season before she found out about the temp V being fatal. She was upset at Huey for like using the temp V. And it's like, bitch, like you have powers and you're like emboldened because you have them. Like, why are you mad that Huey like is also going to like have powers? Like what's the problem here? Because she didn't know at that point that temp V was fatal. Like afterwards, I'm like, okay, like we can definitely be like more concerned and angry at Huey that if he has this information about it being fatal and he still does it, we can be mad at him. But this was before. She's only emboldened as she is, and she loves her powers and does like and she's like got honor, and she's kind of like really consistent and true to herself about it. But she has powers. Like, what is so wrong about Huey having the powers? I only like sided with her after we found out more data about the science part of it. And I'm like, yeah, we can definitely do that. But I don't know. I'm not like super impressed with like her character overall.
Wow.
I'm a grumpy old man.
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn, Starlight.
Rounding out the rest of the boys' team, was given a certain amount of screen time this season so that we knew why he was anti-powers, anti-Soldier Boy. In this episode, though, it feels like he got only a little bit of screen time. He got a few cool sound bites, like when he says, shit's baffling. I thought that was a funny word because baffling is a word, kind of a $10 word. But then he says shits, like a nice combination of highbrow and lowbrow there. Shit's baffling. And he ends up telling his daughter about Soldier Boy and why he has the hashtag reasons about him. Overall, he didn't have much to contribute to the end of Soldier Boy's reign of terror this season. He was in on it. He did put the gas mask on him. Is that enough? Is that all we could really hope for with a normal mortal man going up against a god? Was that enough payoff for you guys?
I mean, I guess that gives him like his sense of justice on this thing. I've been really sad with what they've done to his character this episode. It just doesn't feel like it matches seasons 1 and 2. But I was like, well, at least like he got to do the gas part, because that really is all he can do in a room full of superheroes like fighting. Good for him. I
do feel like this season, and it happens with like longer like with shows that have multiple seasons, they can't always be together. And so I think also that's why it's felt a little bit disconnected. But then you realize that, I mean, in this season, it was a lot of them having to have their own journeys and then I like that now they're all back together. So I guess in that sense, I'm just going to take it as like he needed to have his journey this season with coming to terms with Soldier Boy, the hold that Soldier Boy had over him, realizing that like I guess it's like a metaphor. He literally cannot do anything against Soldier Boy. He would look at him menacing, like, I want to kill you. But he's like, I couldn't do anything about it. And I mean, I think that's like a great metaphor for people who hold on to things that they can't control, and it like eats them alive. And then he realized in the end, what is the most important? It's my daughter. I don't want to show her this side of me. I want to share. And then like, I love that Frenchie told him like, share that with her too. And she'll like understand you for it. Instead of like not knowing why your dad is doing it, she can at least know like, oh, he has his issues too. You know, like that's a beautiful thing that they're going to be able to like grow up with and have now. And she can even help him or, you know, help each other. To me, it was just a win on like mental health, showing people that like you might want to take out the thing that you think is the thing that's messing with you, but then you realize that it's actually internal and you got to work on yourself and you got to accept it and then you got to move on. So I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it and giving them too much credit, but that's what it felt for Eminem. I mean, whatever, like, because it just showed like he's us, like he can't do anything about it, but what he can do, he can control his emotions, the way he treats his kid, the way he opens up to her and like doesn't let that cycle continue, like the horrible cycle of just holding it all in and then bursting out, and then she's like, why is my dad like this? So I love that.
Yeah, well said, Kat. I agree.
Shit is baffling.
Yeah.
No, that was a good point. I hadn't applied that much consideration to MM's journey this season, but yeah, that's a great outlook. Frenchie and Kimiko, they also had a lot to do this season. As we mentioned before, it was mostly away from the rest of the boys. Kimiko is completely non-existent in this episode, except for fighting some guys to a soundtrack. She's a maniac. Frenchie, on the other hand, has like a lot to do. He is emotionally supportive to MM, which I don't know if you recall, but in the first episode, they couldn't talk to each other because they still had some beef with each other. Then he dips into quite a lot of cocaine and then helps save the day by crafting the knockout gas that they need, even though he's been shot in the leg. So that's a lot. And plus he kind of grows a backbone with Butcher. He can suck my shit. I will not shut my cake hole. My cake hole will remain open. That's a lot for Frenchie. But again, like we said with Huey, maybe they needed to do that just with TV, the nature of TV progressing. They build up to this moment where there can be a change. Does it feel earned to you guys that he's now this guy, even though a minute ago he was needing to kind of coke up in order to get through what he was going through until Kimiko straightens him out.
All of the stress, and it seems like they never really get any rest. So it makes sense that he needs the booster and to get his focus done. So with Frenchie, I think that just kind of like the way that we enjoy seeing like what the superheroes have to offer, like we don't see all of their powers at once. We see little bits and pieces there. We got to see that in like a human. We got to see that like he's able to like figure out how to like create some gas that apparently you only could like get in Russia or from like a super lab like that they had to go and rob and stuff, right? And then he just had to like magically like create it again in a lab. So I could hate on it and just reject the notion that he's incapable of it, or I can accept this as like just like superheroes get to show us little glimpses of what they're capable of. Frenchie also has more than meets the eye in terms of like his intellect, his intelligence, and his ability to, we already knew he was like a problem solver since episode 1 when how he figured out how to take out translucent with a butt stick dynamite. I'll take it. And I did really love like all of his like, even though he needed a lot of emotional support, he was a really great friend and support to Eminem, and yeah, really critical in like that kind of like human needs cascading down. And then the relationship with Kimiko, he didn't have like a ton of stuff really going on, and yeah, he didn't piss me off this season.
It was a little bit the shit's baffling of him being able to create this like unique crazy ass gas in just like 5 minutes under gunfire. I was like, you know what, that's something you just gotta let it go. It's not going to make any sense. One of my favorite moments this season was Kimiko and them dancing, the dance number, the musical episode. The thing with the show is there's a lot of characters, so I guess some have to get sidelined in some ways. I do think they had their progression. And again, I think everyone's kind of like tied up and finally resolved maybe not all their issues, but some of their issues are the big ones that have been holding them back in the past. So I do feel like Frenchie has hopefully left Nina in the background or not, and that could also be an issue moving forward. And then Kimiko has come together with herself of like, realizing she can decide what she wants to do. She wants to kill people or save them and take control of, that emotion. So it just feels like everyone's sort of figured out their shit in the ways that like have been holding them back. So it's going to be fun to see them. I guess they're like at full potential now. they're moving forward at their best, whatever their best self is right now. So I think that was Frenchie and Kimiko.
I was a little surprised that they stayed because we had talked about their ongoing desire to just leave this all behind. But maybe with the choice to retain her powers also comes the choice to apply them. And this is how she wants to do it. And she's at peace with that. So we've covered pretty much all the boys except for Butcher. And we've also covered how he saved Huey in the worst way possible. Did you catch the moment when he ignores the call incoming from Grace?
Yes.
Yes. That might have changed how he approached things. In fact, the whole Ryan aspect of it is something that they let lie, you know, because the way he broke ties with Ryan earlier in the season, I think was supposed to keep him out of our minds. And then they have pretty much set up season 4 all based around the push and pull of Ryan between Butcher and Homelander. I don't know if fielding that call would have changed much because, you know, the deed was already done by that point. But still, man, I bet he wishes he would have taken that call.
I wish that he wouldn't have dumped Ryan in such a horrible way. Like, I guess it matches like his style, right? The shittiest way possible that he handled Huey. It's also the shittiest way possible how he handled the whole Ryan thing, when that's like, you know, that was like a big driver of keeping this boy safe from Homelander so he doesn't become another Homelander. And it's just his epic failure in this season.
It's the, for your own good, I'm going to punch you in the face and then walk away. And just because Ryan is 10 or whatever doesn't mean that that's not what he did emotionally.
Yeah, because he like spent time when we saw episode 1 where he like orders on Amazon the Connect 4, and then next time you see them play, and I thought, wow, like this is like some growth, and like I really like this. This is like really sweet on like his attempts on doing this. And so if I'm picturing myself as Ryan and like this person who like my mother like told me that to love and trust, and he is consistently at this point been doing that, and then all of a sudden like the punch in the face and walks away and then is gone for like the whole season. I'm not surprised that Ryan would choose to go with Homelander after that, because like he's the only one who like embraces him for as he is, and Butcher has to be really severely impacted by that. And I'm assuming that that's obviously what a big part of season 4 is going to be.
I mean, the whole big fight at the end, how they've been telegraphing it is that everyone's supposed to gang up on Homelander. They throw Ryan into the mix of it, and now we have unlikely allies of Homelander and Butcher lasering Soldier Boy at the same time. Never would have thought that was going to happen. In fact, that would have been a pretty juicy flash to put into like a preview for the whole season, right? Like, how in the hell would that ever happen? Right? But instead they just gave us Butcher with the eye lasers, and that was enough. I was interested to watch how these two guys hit each other, and maybe it's just because I watch a lot of action movies and you see different kinds of fighting styles and different this and that, but these two guys don't seem to have any express, you know, formal training per se. They just look like they've gotten into a lot of fights. I know that's not like an overly interesting aspect of the show to talk about, but still, they're just slugging on each other like guys in a bar, rather than say like Kimiko, where she's clearly had top-notch training and is flying all around the room, walking on the ceiling or whatever to try to take down her assailants. These two guys are just slugging each other, even though they are super duper strong.
You know, usually we have this like big training montage or like people discovering their powers, and I love that he just does temp B and was like, I'm gonna do this. And like it just like you said, he just goes and brawls it out.
It's ballsy.
Because he has that bravado where like he never falters. Like he never thinks like, oh, like I've only been a soup for what, like 3 times, and he still thinks he can hold his own. That's just been funny to me all season. Always
swagger. Even when he walks in after he gets his terminal diagnosis.
Yeah.
There's a way that Carl Urban portrays Butcher that is super alpha. It's a power move to take up space. in terms of, you've seen like man spreading or whatever on in public spaces or whatever, and it's like it's the same sort of idea of exerting dominance is by taking up as much space as you possibly can. Very alpha thing to do for people that don't happen to be male. And if you notice, whenever he comes in, he does this move where he shifts his weight kind of back and forth on his feet.
Like a boxer.
Yeah. But it's also like I'm claiming this whole airspace, where you see someone that's more meek, more Huey. Even though Huey is quite tall, he never really does it. He always has his like arms crossed and he takes up just like a sliver of airspace, Whereas Butcher, he just kind of almost like he coils and spins around with how much weight shifting he does to claim this is my spot and all this, and maybe even 6 feet around me. Even though he's dying, just watch him. Whenever he comes on screen, he kind of shifts back and forth, kind of John Wayne style. Like this is me. I'm taking up this amount of space.
There was one moment though that I think was pivotal and it was like just a fleeting moment, but I think said a lot about what happened at the end with Billy. He had been wanting to do this by himself the whole time, take out Homelander and then take out Soldier Boy or, like whatever this plan was. And he did not care if anyone was on board. He didn't want to hear any opposing opinions because he took out MM because he was going to be that opposing force.
Right.
He had like the one straight goal. And it was funny to me because even like he had the temp V, and he was battling it out in that like last scene with, against Homelander and Soldier Boy. And then there was a moment where I think that one of them had knocked him out and then he comes to, and then it's all the other people around him that had been trying to be there for him that he has pushed away that were the ones that were getting it done. Like it ends up being Maeve. It ends up being, like MM even holding Soldier Boy down and like it wasn't him doing it. And I was thinking like that was such a good, I guess, sort of a metaphor for like the way he thought he could handle it on his own, but then realizing, oh shit, like I can't do it on my own. Like even if he's not going to admit that like fully, I think he realized in that moment for himself that he was like, oh, like it's not even me that was able to take out Soldier Boy or Homelander or whatever. And then I think that's why at the end when Starlight says that thing where she's like, oh, what's Billy gonna say about that? And then when he comes in and is like, well, like I think he kind of went back to that moment of like shit was hitting the fan and he wasn't even a part of it, but it was everyone else who was all in there doing it. Like I think that's the moment for me that I was like, oh, maybe this is what's going to turn him around to being like more of a team player. Still be very Billy, but he knows deep down that like he needs them now. And I think he didn't feel that way before.
The shit was hitting the fan and he went to defend Ryan, to put his body between Soldier Boy's eruption and Ryan, which is also a big, huge character changing moment for him rather than try to go after Homelander, because there was several things happening all at the same time in that moment. And really the pursuit of Homelander was derailed because Ryan chose Homelander and Billy blacks out. That none of the rest of them were going to go after him without superpowered Billy to try to take up the slack. But I think your point though about needing the team and realizing that, and then also figuring out where his heart is, defending his wife's child, honoring his promise, all kind of crashed in on him at the same time, combining that with a terminal diagnosis. And now you might have a very different guy, even though he may come in to the room and still take his amount of space just because he's used to doing that from muscle memory. He also just kind of waited by the door, slurping on a big gulp, listening to everybody talk rather than barge in and set everybody straight. The last shot we get of him, though, is that he is turning his attention toward Victoria in the next season. Yeah, I guess we'll save that little bit until the predictions section so that we can continue moving on, because we really have only supers to talk about now. All season, we'd been wondering what was up with Maeve. And we finally got our action with Maeve. I wonder if she had another project she was engaged with or something. Sometimes that'll happen, where someone will go away and come back over the course of the filming of a TV show to address other obligations. Or maybe she just didn't have that big a role this season. She did apply it when it counted. I was set up for her big ending by initially being disappointed in that she turned on the boys and decided to stick with her singular focus on Homelander and jeopardize, in fact, their larger effort to take out Soldier Boy. Did you guys fall for that whole line also?
I have an issue with like how everything like turned out on that battle. You know, just to start off with like Maeve, like I'm with Maeve on that. I'm like, the fucking mission is to take out this monster Homelander who's like impacting the world in a really big way negatively. He is in charge essentially of the largest group that has all of the soups. He's really dangerous on like a big, large scale. So to me, that mission makes more sense than like protect Ryan from Soldier Boy. Like, I don't give a shit about that. So I was just like, yeah, like Maeve is the one who's got some sense here. And her battle scene was amazing. I love her so much. And I love like you were saying, right? Like everybody, if they exercise and practice, they do improve and get better. We saw that with Maeve. She's been, sober and exercising and really practicing her battle stuff. And we got to see like a really legitimate fighter versus like the messy brawlers. And I really liked that. But I was like, yes, like this makes sense to keep on this mission right here on Homelander. And I'm glad that she got to do it. And I think that she's had so much internal fear against Homelander. Maybe I don't know, maybe like he's just played so many mind games and been so dangerous to so many people that she didn't realize that she actually did have what it took to like be a legitimate threat to him, right? Like she didn't blow up when he lasered her. She fought through that and
That's true.
Kept kicking his ass. If that was new data for her, like she's never been lasered by Homelander before. And so this is like, oh, wow, I actually like can keep going here. And that gave her like extra mojo, then like kudos. But I was happy that she stayed on mission. I was more annoyed with everybody else.
Good take.
I'm looking at like large scale here. He's causing like really like big havoc. He's fucking psycho, crazy, unstable. I don't know why Soldier Boy is the bad guy here. I fucking laughed so much when he like just slammed Ryan with his shield out of the way. I know it's so bad. Whatever. I'm a mom. Like I can find humor in this kind of stuff too. But I don't know. I'm also thinking like Ryan's a superhero. Homelander is his son. Like these are like really strong people. The mission to get Homelander out, like, I don't know. I felt like Soldier Boy could easily like blast them with his thing and they would make it. Because Kimiko, she's arguably not as powerful as these three people, as Ryan, Homelander, and Maeve. And look how like they survived this like blast, and she survived the blast. So I think that they would have survived like Maeve did. So I think like if Homelander is like kinship to Soldier Boy and therefore also to Ryan, then it would have like taken care of the goals that they've been wanting, right? Which is like Ryan doesn't need his powers. Like, that was Butcher's big problem. I mean, he didn't want him to be like his dad with like the powers. And I think Homelander would have survived the blast. He just would have no power, which is exactly what they would have wanted. I thought Maeve was the only one who made sense.
Nice. All right.
I do wonder if the project thing that you're talking about makes sense, because in some ways I feel like Maeve is the one that's been underutilized the most in this across the seasons, which has been annoying because she seems to be also one of the most interesting that I would want to know more about, especially her powers.
I agree with that.
In this episode, we learned just how powerful she is. I mean, still not any, we don't have any
better
specifics.
than I was expecting, actually.
Yeah. She didn't have any specifics. And I actually was thinking she died and was thinking like, oh, okay, like that was a very fitting way to go. I was like, but it was sad. Oh, this is the way you're going to get rid of her. And like, she had nothing, like, she didn't get any, like a lot of screen time or like a lot of development. I'm glad it didn't end up that way, because I would have been really upset. And it also kind of gives her room to maybe possibly come back, because we've seen with Kimiko that you can get it back. So not count her out for sure, forever. It was fun to see the showdown between her and Homelander. It was kind of like, I guess, was it like Wonder Woman against Superman?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah. But that was really cool. And I love that like there was a moment there where Homelander was like, come on, Maeve, we have like a bigger problem over here. And I was like, yeah, come on. And I was like, wait, no, like she, like Inez, she had her eye on the prize and has never let him fool her, like she knows exactly who he is. And yeah, there is that bigger issue of Soldier Boy, but like Homelander is an issue and always will be. And so she wanted to get rid of him, which is understandable. So I don't know, but I'm still upset at how Maeve has been handled. And I wonder if that was the plan all along or if it was more because of actor availability. So, but I do like how they kind of tied it up.
Totally agree that she's been squandered.
The actress who plays her is really good, and I love that the hints of who she was, and what we could have learned more about, but kind of a missed opportunity unless there's something else coming down the road. But I don't know. I feel like it's pretty much done at this point. Yeah,
I feel like she is not going to sign up for any more heroing, even if they said you can have your powers back. I don't think she'd want them back.
Yeah. The only way that this would happen, it's just random blue sky thinking here, if she were to return, it would have to be because of Homelander being like so petty about like this fight situation, and he would go after her and maybe like hurt her spouse. And then she'd be like, well, like if he killed her spouse after she like hid away somewhere, then she would come back to like try to off him. But I felt like it was a really good send off for her. She deserves a break. She's been traumatized by him for even longer than we've known her. She deserves some peace.
Ashley deleted the copy of the video recording of her escaping. We know that Vought and the media is saying that she's dead. However, we also know that Homelander has a transactional relationship with a woman who, for all we know, in the next season will be vice president of the United States. A person that can get information by asking for it, for all we know, at least in TV world. I mean, she got Ryan's location, so digging up the whereabouts of Maeve's, former partner and then kind of connecting the dots isn't completely off the table. It's just narratively, it feels like, I don't know, that feels kind of soap opera at this point, and I think they'd want to move forward with some new, more exciting plot.
Yeah, I hope that they leave her alone and then just like keep reintroducing like new soups and new powers just to kind of give us more range about like what's out there. And like I said, I feel like Maeve deserves this piece and send off.
Maybe, they'll give Love Sausage his powers back and he can come back.
No. Oh, yeah. What if he uses that thing like a bazooka, or if it's strictly strangulation?
I think maybe, or like a bow staff,
He's like impaled people with that.
Yeah,
like, you think,
sure.
Like it could do that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of blood.
That's
Sorry. This is a fun show. I'm like so grateful for both of you for inviting me to join you on this, because this is probably one of the best shows I've ever seen. Despite like, I know like I like to pick apart like things, but overall I'm like super entertained. It's so unique and different than like anything that I've ever seen before. And it's so fun to talk about because it's opened up like so like a creativity box in my head, right? And I love like going down those thought trains, and you guys just entertain me with them and put them in teasers. It's good stuff.
We're glad to have you, because you are someone that I know won't always see things the same way as me or as Kat. So it provides a different way of looking at the characters and the events, and especially on a show where it doesn't necessarily have to follow the same sort of rules set down as other shows and other narratives. Yes, there are things built into storytelling that we as people, raised in a Western culture come to appreciate and expect. But the boys, what makes it so watchable and unique is that the way they do it is they recognize that, but then they still apply their own rules to that by not having any. So it's great to get all points of view on how to look at this thing that is so wildly different than everything else. So that really leaves us with Homelander and Soldier Boy. The whole first part of Soldier Boy's episode, I think, was meant to be a red herring into scaring us into thinking that he might team up with his son because of the moments of just feeling very iffy on the whole arrangement to go take out Homelander. I don't know. Did you guys agree that they were setting us up to feel that way?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
was, Kat, your prediction about Soldier Boy seeing Homelander as a disappointment, and Ryan in turn as just an extension of that disappointment. Did they telegraph that by having Soldier Boy explain that that's where he came from in terms of where he learned how to father? Because that's how his father treated him. A real man wouldn't have taken a shortcut. That bullshit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it definitely came from that. Like, it was funny because that whole speech was meant, we've seen it happen before in other shows, and that was meant to be like, I didn't want to be like this. He actually like leaned into it. That caught me off guard because I was like, oh, maybe I was wrong. And he actually does want to be with, Soldier Boy. And then when it kind of went the other way, I was like, oh, okay. And that's what I love about the show and the writing is sometimes like they are on point with some of the tropes that we've seen before, but then in other ways, they kind of take the trope and turn it like 180, which makes it more interesting and kind of make a whole new trope. I love that because as an audience, we've seen the father-son issues a lot on TV, and so sometimes like we were expecting that, right? And then to have it done in this way when Soldier Boy's like, actually no, I don't want this, and you are a disappointment, like you just kind of going into it. I really enjoyed that, and it makes for interesting TV because if they had teamed up, like I don't know how interesting that could have been. Like what Soldier Boy have to feed Homelander milk or what? Like, what would it? Although I think Inez would have really loved that, but
but yeah, that's funny. Oh my god, that's a great visual. Thank you for that, Kat.
Yeah, like the three of them just eating cereal, like that would have been awkward, slurping on that cereal.
And since she's strong enough to actually like handle an entire cow, they could just pick up the cow, squeeze it directly into the bowl.
Oh my god. Yeah, I really do love that it played out like this. There's some areas I feel like, some areas of other characters where the storyline feels like lazy writing, but it feels on contrast that they put a lot of thought and effort into like Soldier Boy's character, and everything about Soldier Boy I enjoy. I love his confidence, his security, no bullshit kind of thing. Like I would love to live my life in a way where I like just don't give a fuck about what people like think or say, and I just do what I want to do because it feels good and it feels right and it's like fun. I just love that Soldier Boy calls out Homelander, on that biggest insecurity that he does have. That's something that holds Homelander from being super great, is the fact that he cares so much about what people think of him. He needs to feel love because but versus like Soldier Boy, I don't think he gives a shit if people love him or not. Like he's just like doing his thing and living his life, living his best life, and I respect that.
Well, he's gotten by without it for a very long time,
and it's just so satisfying to like see him bring Homelander down like that, because nobody can bring Homelander down like that, because Homelander like can kill everybody so easily and they know it. This is like one person who's like, I don't give a shit, like you can try to kill me, like we can go for it, whatever, like I don't give a fuck. Like that was very satisfying.
Other than that, he didn't have a whole lot to do in this episode. I mean, he gets in a big fight. It's a cool fight, and they lead us around by the nose with the, I might go back on the deal, but in fact, he would have been happy to take out Homelander on his own. It's the addition of Ryan to the equation that throws everything off track, and we get a totally different fight than we were expecting. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that this resolution felt a lot like a pause button having been put on this whole narrative. I don't know that I loved them putting him into cold storage. In fact, I would have preferred not.
What would you have preferred?
Just dead.
Oh my God. I would have been devastated, Paul.
Yeah, but they can't kill him. I mean, again, we don't know the extent of what powers are, blah, blah. I thought it was very fitting, cruel way. It's his worst nightmare. Like Soldier Boy's worst nightmare of being stuck in there. But like, he's so crazy that no one can contain him. No one can kill him.
Is he crazy though?
He's of his time. He's of his time.
I felt like I just kept questioning, like, why is he the bad guy? I don't understand. Like, he came back from, he was tortured for 40 years. He came back and he was only on one mission, to take out the people who put him in that situation. But like, other than that, he wasn't wreaking havoc on anybody or anything.
He's unstable. That's the thing. So he is definitely like a bomb waiting to just go off. So I think that's why he's unstable. But yeah, I mean, the reasoning, like even at the end of the finale, I had the same thing. I was like, like he's not that bad. But he does things in a way. I think like he very much was a soldier. Like he doesn't ask questions. He has like a one-track mind. He's not open for other, ways of life and opinions. So I think that's maybe what makes him bad. But I don't know. But he has like a black and white moral compass, which also sometimes is not good. But like, I hope that by putting him in the box, that means that he's not gone. And I just love Jensen Ackles, so I need to see him again in season 4. And I think they know that, so that's why they couldn't kill him. Especially if Maeve is gone. Like, we still need him to be there. But the thing is, like, how are they going to use him? And could it be something where, since he does have this crazy power, that he basically takes away other powers? Is that the way that they're going to also experiment on him to extract whatever that is, to use that as Homelander? Like, I mean, to take out Homelander.
Ooh.
So I would think that would be the key for him, but also it's just like because he's going to be in there for a while. I don't think it's the last. I feel like this is like, again, if this is going multiple seasons, this is one of those things in like other shows where they like shelve the person for one bit, but then like they have to come back because like he is the equivalent of Homelander. Like, how can they just put him in a box and like, okay, bye? Like,
I wonder, did we see on screen where anybody officially connects the dots that Soldier Boy's explosive power also takes away superpowers?
I don't think everyone knows that yet. I think just the people, like, obviously the boys do because Maeve and Kimiko know, but like, I don't think Homelander knows that yet.
I mean, I think that Vought like knows now. So that's because of the cleanup that they had to do at Herogasm. They talk about that.
That would make sense.
Yeah, that would make sense.
If they did know that, but it would also make sense because we haven't seen anyone just freaking say it, that they know that, and for like, say, Grace knowing that, or someone like that, someone in a very official capacity. Soldier Boy is under Grace's control now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have no belief that cold storage unit, if he should ever wake up, would keep him contained for even half a second. Yeah. But
and what is the gas that, like, I guess not even it just subdues him a little bit, like, because he's still very much in control. I don't know, like I'm like, why can't they just inject that into his veins and kill him? Like, I don't understand why they can't kill him.
Just they can't penetrate.
Like penetrate. Okay, so it can only be the gas that he inhales. Mm-hmm. Okay, but they can't come up with a lethal gas. Like, nothing kills him, I guess. That's crazy.
Nothing kills him that they can like figure out yet. So it makes sense that it's consistent, right? That he would not actually die, but have to be put in storage. And I'm grateful for that, because honestly, I feel like this made no sense. Soldier Boy, like, yes, he was unstable in the beginning. Like, he just got out of 40 years of like being tortured and like in isolation and a thing. But by the end of the season, he was very much like more in control. Like, we didn't see him he was more intentional about everything. So I feel like that was just kind of transitional, like instability.
Well, at the end, when he blows up, is that a loss of control akin to his loss of control when he hears the Russian music, or is that more like, I'm going to use all the tools I can to get out of this bind?
Like a life-saving measure for him. I think that's like a fight or flight kind of like response that he was having, like a last-ditch effort. I don't like that he was like the bad guy, because I feel like logically on his story, like, it makes sense. We've seen movies and shows where like a good guy like comes back and takes vengeance and taking out all of his bad guy people, and we're rooting for that person. So why is that any different in this situation here? Like, he didn't intentionally like kill those people in the beginning. It's just kind of like an unintended consequence of him being released in the wild while like physically unhealthy. But afterwards, he was like in control, and he's super knowledgeable, and he's really confident, and he's like got honor from the beginning that he made that deal. He was on mission the entire time, up even like past Huey like betraying him and nearly jeopardizing that mission that Huey and Butcher asked him to do, even though he didn't know any of them. And like, so I feel like this is like a unfair situation here. Like, just because he's going to shoot at Homelander protecting Ryan, like,
yeah.
I feel like the logic, like, do these people not have logical logical reasoning, Kimiko survived, and she was not powerful, not as powerful as Homelander. Like, she doesn't have bulletproof skin the way that Homelander does, and therefore Ryan also does, who are both related to. Like, they should just let him blast them both, because I think they both would have lived. Logically, that makes sense that they would live but just not have powers, and that's like a win-win for everybody. So, but yeah, I like what you said, Kat, that the potential now they have him and creating some kind of anecdote to the soup power that could potentially be used to continue that mission.
Yeah, but you're right on the like the fact that he's so, like, he knows who he is. He's so confident. It really irked him when, like, he was willing to go along with Billy, even though, like, with this Homelander thing, even learning that Homelander is his blood or whatever threw a wrench in the plans, but he was like still willing to do it because, you know, of his feelings towards that. No connection there really besides the blood part. When Billy went against him because of Ryan, he was just like, what? Like, you're like them too. And I was just like, or he's weak too. And I was like, he never falters on what he believes in, which is, I mean, an admirable quality, but it depends on what you believe in, I guess, right? So that was interesting to see.
It's all in the framing, right? Like Inez just mentioned, we've seen lots of stories framed where the person who's been locked away gets a chance to take revenge on their captors, and we're meant to root for that character, even though we may know that on the whole that person may not be a great person. Like, have you ever seen Old Boy?
No.
It was a Korean movie that was remade, and Josh Brolin was the guy who was put away for a long time in like this very odd kind of imprisonment where he was there for years and years and years. And it wasn't like jail. It was like a room where he was, you know, given food and just time to, I don't know, just time passed. In typical like Asian cinema style, there's just all this weird shit that happens, including like he gets put back out in the world, but he wakes up inside like a piece of luggage, like a suitcase or something, and then and then he figures out, hey, I'm not in my room anymore, and then he gets to try to seek vengeance on the people that did him wrong in the first place. And we know that he's not a great guy, but the setup for the story is that he's the protagonist. So we're following him and we're watching him go through all this stuff. Same deal as Soldier Boy. We know that he has his faults, but in this case, we already have our protagonist. That job's taken. So we have to look at him as a bad guy. The job of bad guy is already taken. And that is Homelander. In the last episode, we debated about Noir returning to face off with Soldier Boy, but we missed the fact that he would have to make amends with Homelander in order to get that far, which didn't work out.
R.I.P. Noir. Again,
yeah, we thought he was toast last time. Now I think with his guts like on the floor and ripped open, I think that's it. I think that's all now for Dark
Definitely
Noir.
more serious than almond allergy ingestion, right? He's
Yes.
definitely out. Did you guys think that it would be Homelander to take him out?
I didn't until he walked in and realized like that. I knew that was going to go down because Homelander is, he could have anybody on his team. And even if you're a weakling or whatever, but like you're loyal to him, that's what he wants the most. You to be truthful and not hide anything from him. That's like his thing. So when he said, "Did you know?" I was like, "Ooh, you're gonna get it."
Yeah. It's very consistent of Homelander.
Yeah, he's pretty easy if you think about it. Like of course, like 100% loyalty comes with caveat when it's Homelander. But like if you think about it, like that's all he wants, and then just don't lie to him and be truthful about it. So, but most people can't do that with him.
That's a good point. He doesn't kill you just for weakness. I mean, he may hurt you, like if you're the deaf superhero trying out for the Seven. That's one thing. But in terms of if you've already made the team, all you need to do is just be loyal, because he despises A-Train and Ashley and the Deep. But since they'll kiss his ass, they can stick around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he's got the fear installed in them. So he doesn't have to worry about trust. He just has to worry about control there. But Noir, like, he had like a high respect for him. Like, I even felt sad for him a little bit when he's explaining how he's the one who like killed Noir and he's like worth more than all of you.
Yeah.
And I was
that was
like,
brutal.
yeah, I was like, because I know like it hurt him to kill Elizabeth Shue in season 1. It hurt him to
because they're
kill
good
Noir.
assets to the team. Like, they're valuable, but the loyalty is what matters to him more. And
he's so unstable. Like, he needs that security. And once you fuck that up, so as soon as like when he asked Noir, "Did you know?" I was like, "Fuck, he's about to murder him right now."
It was pretty what's the word, unsettling when he says, "I can see you under the mask. I know when you smile. I know when you're blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, hashtag creepy Homelander. Like that was peak creepy Homelander, knowing everything. And it also goes to show you, like, when I think Grace was like fumbling with her phone, and she's like, "I can hear your little thing." And so sometimes we've mentioned whether Homelander hears everything in the building, and I think he does. So it's like just the mute. Like, I always wonder, like, putting the music up, did that even help? Like Starlight, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Good point. Coming back to Ryan, I guess. The discussion that he had with Ryan in their yard, where he says accidents for people that are as strong as us just happen, and it's no one's fault. None of us are as strong as them, so maybe we don't have the right perspective. But to me, that felt like an easy explanation to get back on Ryan's side, or Ryan back on his side. Did that explanation wash with you guys? Like, just because we're strong, sometimes things are going to happen, so it's no big deal. It's just that the nature of their abilities means that bad things are going to happen, and they just got to get used to it.
It's such a Homelander kind of response, right? Like, instead of like, we have an accountability and a responsibility because we have this, like, there are
that would
still
be a
rules
much harder answer to give.
Yeah, but he's
he
like,
wants him on his side.
Shit happens, and I love you still. And and then this boy has gone through so much trauma, and he's super confused. And this is the one person who's saying, like, be your authentic self, and I will still love you no matter what. Like, I would go with Homelander too.
And on the one hand, it's beautiful, like, you know, kind of like a father-son relationship, and also just like that unconditional love between a parent and a offspring or whatever. But like, on the other hand, it's coming from Homelander, so of course it has like the twist of being fucked up. So it's like, oh, like, what he's saying sounds really nice, especially if you're Ryan, who, like, he killed his mom. Billy has left him, so he has no one. And so he's like peak vulnerable. And then you have Homelander come in and say, like, I'm going to accept you no matter what. I'm going to love you no matter what you do. And so on the one hand, it's like very nice that Ryan, like, hopefully, even if it's coming from a fucked up way, I hope Homelander means it. He did use Ryan as a tool, as a deflection, because he wanted to use that again with Soldier Boy. And at the very end, he also uses Ryan to kind of like have, like, I have a son, and get more admiration from the people. He is sort of using Ryan as a tool to get more, like, to get that love from people, and as also a shield. Like, he wanted to use a shield against Soldier Boy in a way. I want to feel like what he says is genuine, to at least to Ryan, you know, because like they both are in the same, they're experiencing the same, like he's hoping to maybe help him, but I feel like he's only doing it because he wants Ryan to love him. And that's never good. And that's never, if you're only doing things because you want someone to do something for you, that's never going to be the way to do, like, you're not going to get the love that you want. He sort of manipulated Ryan because he knows he's vulnerable. And so of course Ryan's going to go, but we learn down the road, is it going to hold water, you know, like with Ryan, and when he grows up and becomes even like crazier and like teenager, or is he going to be on his side and be like, you know what, like, this is who I am too. And I mean, he is Homelander's son, so maybe he's going to have the same tendencies as him. And I don't know, unless he has Billy sort of fighting for him as well, and then that's going to be like the epiphany. So maybe that could be like a season 4 sort of thing. They would have to jump Ryan a little bit older, and if Billy only has a year or two, like I don't think they can do a massive time jump for that to happen.
You know, Homelander, I have to always remind myself, like Homelander grew up in a lab. He grew up in a company environment that is constantly sweeping all of his misdoings like under the rug and hiding it and protecting him. So for Homelander, like that's his norm. That's his baseline. That's just standard practice. So I feel like his advice to Ryan there is like genuine because it literally is like how he's lived his entire existence. So that's what he's going to be teaching Ryan, and then he's going to empower Ryan on doing these things and, you know, training him up on his powers that he knows that he has inside him and showing him, just like when he blasted that person's head off in front of people on the first time that he takes like Ryan out in a public outing to announce like, this is my son. That emboldens Ryan. We see him have that little like smirk at the end of the scene.
Right.
You know, and part of it, I think he always will have an agenda that includes how the public like perceives him. And I think he will use the opportunity, realize that Ryan could be like a shield. But I feel like right now we're seeing like Homelander step into like, I'm going to prioritize my parenting side right now in teaching him how to kind of like take over the world or the community, you know, and it's crazy. I feel like Ryan will absolutely get worse before he gets better if he does get better. I feel like could totally be a kind of show where like we don't see Ryan ever get like saved.
That's an interesting perspective. That's a tall prediction there. It's always telling what a show is willing to do with a kid. And that sets the tone about what the rest of the show will be like. Now, this is kind of in reverse in that they've shown us what they'll do with the rest of the show, but what will they do with a kid in terms of like, if you see a movie or a TV show where they kill a kid, now you know the stakes are more elevated than you might see on something else, you know, in terms of, well, if they'll do that, then maybe they'll even kill dogs or, you know, so something. This is working in reverse where we've seen them do a lot of stuff. We've like in the earlier seasons where they show that there's that lab of superpowered babies. You know, that was just a glimpse into, well, they're experimenting on kids. So that's pretty rough compared to other shows. Would they be willing to let a kid go and have an arc where he doesn't turn out okay? Like Kat and I often make comparisons to Game of Thrones because that show for a while would do anything, including have kids that don't have a payoff. Look at some of the Stark siblings that didn't quite make it.
Yeah.
Couldn't outrun the arrows.
Yeah, and we didn't get one of the boys die, which I was a little bit irked about because in the set, like you said, if they don't have that Game of Thrones effect where like any of them are on the chopping block, then it might not be as interesting down the road, like in the later seasons. I was hoping one of them would die. Not like as a fan, no, but in terms of like a fan of a show, like, yeah, if you're not willing to do that and
keep the stakes high.
If you're not going to take those risks, like why are we going to watch when we know that it'll just end up okay at the end? Like, I don't like that. So I do hope like maybe it could be, it's all like rainbows and butterflies, how they left it right now. Like, oh, we're back. The boys are back together. And so it'd be really cool if like in the first, like, I guess they always drop the first 3, right? Like, so I'm assuming they'll do that for season 4. In one of those first 3 episodes, that one of them is on the chopping block. And we thought it would be kind of like a mind fuck of like, oh, they're all safe and they're going to go on this mission. And then all of a sudden one of them gets, their head pops because, you know, from Victoria, like from Vicky. And then that would keep it interesting to kind of keep us going. Because if no one dies in the first like episodes, it's like, oh, okay, everything will be fine again. And that's how I think they'll lose people.
It has come up a lot in like my side conversations that I have with people about the show, where everybody's just like, why doesn't Victoria try to like pop Homelander in some way, like his head, his hand, whatever? And so maybe we can like explore that for like a second before we move on to predictions.
Maybe she has and it hasn't worked.
Right. Yeah. Well, he seems pretty confident that it wouldn't matter. But then we saw that Maeve was able to, you know, bloody his nose. stab him in the ear. Now, will he heal from those things quickly? I kind of assume so. But the fact that she was able to make those dents means that you apply enough super pressure and he will break.
She must have already had to have tried, right? Like, she's so scared of him.
But she also comes from the mind game of Stan Edgar or whatever. So what if she's playing Homelander and making him think that she's weak and she actually could pop his head?
I feel like the fear that they've showed us seemed like really genuine. Like, a lot of the fear was like when she wasn't encountering him head on. Maybe when I talked to my sister about it, she reminded me, well, like, Homelander can see inside of people's bodies. Like, he can see the blood, he can see their energy, their heart rate, all of this stuff. So it's possible that, like, if she's tried, like, he can fight it, like, maybe strong enough to fight it and, like, be able to kill it right away. Like, if he's able to detect it, then he's like laughable. I mean, because she's really powerful. Remember that flex that she did with Starlight, where she made Starlight's nose bleed just barely enough, just to kind of show us, like, the kind of, like, power and control that she has. We haven't really seen her have any kind of attempts, and I don't know if it's because she's afraid to even try because of how powerful he is, kind of like the way that Maeve has been afraid of Homelander until she realized, like, actually, like, I can kick his ass. It could just maybe, like, be one of those kind of instances. But I just thought it'd be worth this. If we're asking the questions over here, there's probably people that are also going to, like, want to hear, like, why isn't she just trying to pop him? So.
Good point. Well, we are running super long, so let's move into predictions. Going into next season, we have a lot of things set up. We have Soldier Boy in cold storage. We have Terminal Billy. We have Starlight in the boys now, and a reconstituted boys under a kinder, gentler Billy. The Seven, which has several openings now. The Seven's only 3 now, I think.
Yeah.
And we have Ryan as a what's the word? Radicalized soup, getting that reassurance from, his name's Todd, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Todd, that it's okay, that might makes right. He's sort of like a little King Arthur trying to learn the right way, right? And he's getting a bad lesson from his dad, that you can lose your temper when someone disagrees, blow his head off, and when the crowd says it's okay, well, then I guess it's okay, because what are you going to do anyway? The cops can't do anything to you.
The show isn't about how it affects the normal people or, like, the masses, but I do think since they're going down this road of like the Homelander love of, a certain group of people, I wonder if they're also going to show us the way that the world the other side reacts, because I mean he is now, it seems like Homelander's going to go off the deep end and not worry about killing people in public or, people that wrong him, because he's always had to maintain that image for the public. But now that certain people are okay with him just doing whatever and really using his power for what he thinks is right, or if people wrong him or whatever, like, I wonder how that's going to look in the public. So we've seen a little bit here and there throughout the season of how, like, the newscast or, like on social media and how people are reacting. But I wonder if they're going to lean in a little bit more next season to, an uncontrolled Homelander and how people are responding to it. And I guess that will also come through with maybe the Vicky, if she becomes, like, vice president, which it's not a surprise, she probably will. So I wonder if it's also going to come through with, like, in that realm of, like, how people are reacting and what they want her and that person to do for, with the soups and stuff. But it would be a different show if they really leaned into that, because they don't really do that. It's more about, like, behind the scenes. But I wonder if they'll tease us a little bit. But I wonder if through that's where the new soups will come in to kind of oppose Homelander. And hopefully that's where Jeffrey Dean Morgan will come in.
That's going to be exciting. I'll have another crush in next season.
Yeah.
Just by default. If we're going to have to see A-Train, then I'm going to maybe assume that this is finally where we're going to see, like, a turning point in his character. And that's all I'm going to say on that, because I don't know why they put me through that this season. So that's my guess. I'm really excited to see Homelander like homeschool Ryan. that's gonna be so fun. Like I loved when he fucking like shoved him off the roof in season 1 or 2? I can't remember.
2.
But when he just like shoved him, like, you can fly, boom. I want more of that. Like, that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to like Ryan turning into this little evil superhero at such a young age too, and seeing like this impact from like the generational lessons. So that's going to be a fun thing. And I think we touched on it earlier, like maybe we'll get to see the transition from the boys as humans to permanent soups, or at least for Butcher, possibly. I don't know if Butcher's character would lend himself to do it, but like if he wants to live and there's an opportunity, because he's got some like, I'm assuming that his mission drive will be all about like saving Ryan from the further corruption, then I feel like he probably would be one to do that. So that would be a really fun thing to see. I don't necessarily know that it would, but hey, that's what predictions are for, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's no stakes for us to make wild predictions, but I do think what you're saying is you're onto something. If Billy knows that he's dying, but he also has this promise to Becca, and when he sees what I'm sure is going to be a very public account of Ryan's progress as Homelander's what would you call that, disciple, he will react, and as they showed us this season, a lot can be fixed by taking the permanent V. And we even had where Soldier Boy explained that he became Soldier Boy after, at some point, it sounded like in adulthood. I had kind of been under the impression that you needed to take V as a kid, and that's how it properly, propagated through your system so that you would max out your powers. And, Kimiko took it later, and so she's a little weaker. But then they say Soldier Boy, maybe it was because he got like the first dose, that they were the same strain that Stormfront might have gotten, like that very early stuff that holds promise for 45, 50-year-old Butcher to take it and turn out okay. So where you're going with that, I totally agree. Like if he sees Ryan and he feels like the only way to save him is that he saves him, but the only way he can save him is if he's okay, and he's not okay because he's dying, I think he would rationalize that to keep his promise that he would soup up and try to make a play for Ryan. That'd be a pretty big story.
Yeah, I mean, they could also go the other route of making it like a really big emotional climactic moment, and Butcher dies, like after he does like fulfill his promise or something.
Yeah, something about this story doesn't seem like Butcher would live through it.
Yeah, and we haven't got the season 5 renewal, so that's why I think, are we tying things up in this season, or I think my predictions will change when they usually know like the first few episodes or even before that they're going to renew, at least with The Boys, because it's one of Amazon Prime's like only shows that I think is like a big hit. I don't know. I wonder if they already know if they have a season 5, because that is a big deal, especially with such little episodes, like they can't pivot right away if they don't know that already. I wonder how that's going to play out.
They do know quickly. Like, remember that show at ATX that was the spin-off of Nancy Drew?
I know, they already canceled it.
They already canceled it after 5 episodes. That's too bad.
Well, don't we need a baddie? Victoria seems like small fish compared to Soldier Boy, even if she is a VP. So my question is like, who is going to be the opposing force against Homelander, or like just someone that they can get on their side or whatever? Like, I feel like it can't just be where we're at right now. So that's my question.
Billy said that he set his sights on Victoria, but if she is VP, they're not equipped to go after a VP in a very frontal, like that's our entire plot kind of way. I think you're right.
Yeah. It
needs to be something more interesting. You got to bring another soup in. Like last season they had Stormfront. This season they had Soldier Boy. About the casting for for Jeffrey Dean Morgan. That's promising. Again, our lack of comic knowledge doesn't help us fill in the blanks there. But with these other aims of knowing that there's a soup in the White House that they don't want to let stand, there's this other more emotionally driven quality of Billy trying to reconcile his promise with Becca and Ryan's upbringing and his own upcoming mortality. Those things would be sort of like B and C plots, I guess, to whatever this new soup would be. And that would help do what we had this season, which was keep everybody going toward the same direction, but maybe some people needing to split off to do their own their own Frenchie Kimiko adventure. I don't think that will happen again exactly. I sure hope little Nina's well gone at this point.
Yeah, no thanks.
Don't need any more of her antics. Billy would reconcile needing to keep Becca's promise with souping up so that he could do that. Yeah, well, that is, I think, our season for season 3 of The Boys. It has been a pleasure talking with you both about this off-the-wall show. We don't have anything else scheduled until the next final season of Snowpiercer, so we may have to find something in the meantime to keep us online and chatting about wildly violent television.
We should choose a more like a rom drama or something. It would be different.
You think so?
Because we do a lot of post-apocalyptic, very doomsday. Imagine that. Yeah. Which is, I love that, but it would be funny for us to do one that's like just normal stuff.
Right. Could you believe that Charlotte didn't get Dakota to school on time? Oh my God.
Yeah.
If anybody wanted to find Kat on the interwebs, where would they look?
Yes, they can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Things Kat Loves. And in my lull time, I'll just be, podcasting over at Latinx Lens and posting about plants and my dog.
Rex.
Yes.
And Inez, where would people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at NeezyThinks, tagged to the Pod Clubhouse posts here, and also in some of these random Facebook groups of the different shows that we're on. I like to engage with the commenters and read the different articles related to the show, and that's what I love to bring to these. So you can find me on there.
And I am at Paul V. Daly on Twitter, or at Pod Clubhouse on Twitter and Instagram, or www.podclubhouse.com on the interwebs, where you can find all of our podcasts, not just The Boys, but everything else that we've ever published. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast or all the Pod Clubhouse podcasts so that other people can find them. And we'll see you next season. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.
Pod